Okay, welcome, welcome, welcome to Unique Genius in 33. It is May 6th, 2020. We are excited. It's 11:30 Central Time, 12:30 Eastern Time. Uh, just very honored and excited and delighted to have our guest on today. We become friends. I feel like Rhonda is a friend of mine. We work together. We get to do some projects together, but I think we've just gotten to know each other, I think, and I just adore this woman. So I'm excited because today we're going to be talking about the input theme. So my name is Sherry Strong, the COO of Strong Communities. And today we're talking about input. And I'll go over the definition here in a second, but I do want to introduce our guest today, Rhonda Rosborough. And I'm going to let her say where she's from, what she does, and then also share everybody with what your top 5 are, Rhonda. And then we'll get into the input thing.
Well, good morning, Sherry. Thank you for having me. It's a beautiful day today in Sycamore, Illinois. We're about 65 miles northwest of Chicago. I am a Strong Communities facilitator, coach, trainer. I primarily work within communities with businesses, educational institutions, and organizations, working with organizations through talent development. And I especially enjoy doing that, focused on engagement, performance, and productivity. So that's
Okay.
a
Awesome.
little,
Education sector. I love it. And we're both in the Illinois state. So we're sharing our
yes.
lockdown situation together.
Yes, we are.
I forgot. I always, and from the very beginning, if you remember, I equated you to Wisconsin. And ever since then, I forget that you're Illinois. So, okay. So Illinois. So to share with everybody what your top 5 are.
Learner, it's always learner, achiever, relator, input, and empathy. You can always spout them off until it comes right down to it.
Last week or a couple weeks ago, I was interviewed and I could not remember my top 5 for the life of me. And I go, it does not matter how long you've been doing this. When you go to name them off in a moment like this, you can have those pauses. So say them again.
Learner, achiever, relator, input, and empathy.
Oh my, we have your top 3 we share. Not in the same order, but yeah, okay. Because I have achiever and learner and relator as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I feel like you're a sister from another mother. Okay.
Kindred spirits.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Well, today we're actually focusing, it's your number 4 talent, input. And input, according to Gallup, now just so you know, those of you who've been watching this, you know this, I look over to my left, that's where I have an extra monitor. So I'm reading my notes and my questions that I have for Rhonda. But the people with input, according to Gallup, the general description is, or definition is, people exceptionally talented in the input theme have a craving to know more. They often like to collect and archive things. Now, that doesn't mean they always do, or information so that they can share it in the future. So does that describe input for you, or who you are, Rhonda?
Absolutely. That's a very good, concise explanation of input.
Yes, input fascinates me, and I love input. So this will be, I'm anxious to hear how it works for you. Now, we're in the middle of an interesting time in life, and actually experience a once in a lifetime thing, and maybe once in a century type thing in the pandemic. So if you're watching this video and it's 2022 or 2025 and you're seeing this, we're actually in the middle of a pandemic here, and which is causing people to use their strengths in many different ways. So we're switching up the questions here just to get started before we jump deep into input. So just in general, Rhonda, how are your top 5 strengths helping you right now during this time?
They have really kept me balanced during this time. Because I think like most people, I've had real ups and downs, swings of emotions, that from the first shelter in place to now to watching what's happening in the world. So they've really kept me balanced, and I've I've had to consciously lean in to each one of them at different times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when Europe was hit first and Italy, it just broke my heart. Empathy was just overflowing with compassion and concern. And I actually had to step back a little because it was taking me to just a deep sadness for them and the
Mm.
struggles they were having.
Can
So
we
I,
can we just tell everybody, just for context, what empathy in general, people who have empathy in their top five especially, can often feel things deeper even than other people. So if there's something like that going on in the world, I mean, you can feel things other people aren't even feeling, or even deeper than they're feeling it. So a tragedy or a trauma, and on the opposite side too, right? Like when there's extreme
exactly.
happiness, yeah. So
Hmm.
there's both sides of the coin. So when something like this happens and you have empathy, I can totally understand why you could feel that so much, maybe quicker than other people.
So I just had to step back a little. I had to stop watching. Input loves being kept up on the news, what's happening, what's the latest developments.
Mm-hmm.
But my empathy, I needed to step back from that a little bit and
Wow.
balance out a bit more.
Well, that's interesting, because I was going to ask you then which one's not serving you. So, but it sounds like those two can maybe, now you're learning how to do it, but in the beginning of this, maybe we're butting up against each other?
A little bit. Learner's in there too, because learner still has that curiosity about, well, as you said, this is historical. It's a pandemic. Looking back at the Spanish flu and looking at cause and effect and what happened then and then relating that to now. So though there were interesting facets, but I had to just step back from learning so much about this
Mm-hmm.
and how it was impacting people. Achiever was probably my most underserved,
Mm,
in that business is down, places are shut, we're not connecting, physically with my family or people. So it's like, well, my achiever loves it. The longer my to-do list, I am energized. I just want to
right,
keep going. So when this happened, it's like, well, what difference does it make?
right.
If I do it today, if I do it tomorrow, or if I do it next week.
Yeah.
And in some ways, that was good for my soul to just kind of heal, to just kind of be at peace with what was going on in the world, and part of acknowledgement and acceptance of what can I do during this time period? How can I keep others safe? How can I help our world at this time
Right.
by my actions? So I think it's part of I almost want to call it a grieving process
Mm-hmm.
for what's been happening. And then trying to move forward through that. And then my positivity, it's number 6, but I always see hope in the future too.
Yeah. Oh
So,
my gosh. Yeah. It would,
mhm,
right now, your positivity is probably, using your words, balancing
mhm,
everything, all your
yes.
other themes.
So it has really helped having the positivity to see the good things that have come out of this crisis, how people are coming together, how innovations will not only serve this pandemic today, but those innovations are going to serve people tomorrow and into the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ah, yes. Well, isn't it awesome that we have this language, which is why we do this, because we want
Yes.
everybody to be able to experience that peace that can come from understanding the way we think, right? That how
Hmm.
we understand things, and not go, man, I wish I was, because you're not. If this is who you are, so how do you embrace it? And to have this language, and if you're watching this and don't understand strengths or haven't taken the assessment, this is different than any other assessment out there. This can truly, not that all the other assessments don't help you, it just, this will help you understand why you think the way you do, and to stop yourself from beating yourself up if you don't think like
Hmm.
somebody else, especially in a crisis mode. Well, so let me ask you this then. So input, let's just get into this. We always do like to start with positive, so we'll feed that a little bit.
Okay.
What do you love most about the talent theme input and having it?
What I love about input is that it allows me to help other people.
Mm,
So that collecting of information and sharing of that information, I love to share with others. So I typically have an area that I focus on is personal development, engagement, emotional intelligence. So those are my areas of focus, but they're all around people, right?
Right.
Um, so it's always an advantage when I'm talking with someone. They say, well, I've really got this problem and I wish I had this. And my input goes, I am so happy. I have something that will help you. Would you like me to share it with you? So it's the ability to help people naturally find information that they may not know where to look, or they may not know about a specific piece of information, or helping them start the search for it, going, oh, we might look here, or helping them find where that search might start.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. What's coming to mind is a cartoon image I used to describe input as, is if you imagine like a cartoon character where they're pulling out, a filing cabinet drawer, and it goes 80,000 feet, right? Like they just keep pulling it out. It's just forever. That's what I imagine when I think of somebody with input. Like you have this filing cabinet drawer. You're like, wait, I know it's in here. Let me find it. And you want to share it then. So you file it, and even if you don't know exactly where, but you will. So that's what comes to mind.
It is. And the other aspect I would add to it, that for me, I always tell people I collect information in people. And that part of my input is the connections I make, the friends I have, my network of, oh, well, if you want to do this, I need to introduce you to this person, because you two can connect that way in common interest. So I always have that people side. There's always a people side to my input.
But there's your relator, right? Because relator is what, number 3?
3.
Yeah. See, so your input, that sounds like your relator input play really well together, and make you who you are, right? Like it becomes a foundational aspect of who you are.
They
Wow.
do.
I love it. I love you. So on the other flip side of the coin, which we always go to, what drives you crazy about the input thing?
The depth of information and amount of information that's available, and this insatiable thirst for more knowledge. So it's like unbounded resources, and you could just keep going like the Energizer Bunny of where do you stop?
Yeah.
And
Especially in
so,
today's world with social media. Can you imagine somebody who had input like in the 1800s? I don't know if you can even imagine that, right? The boundaries that you would have had. Now they still probably gathered information about the townspeople and, who was doing what, or, how to, dig the best well, but I can only, and it was probably in theory the same amount of information, accordingly, right? According to the times. But in today's world where you have access, have you ever just gone down rabbit holes where you're starting like, I'm going to go look for a recipe, and then a crock pot comes up, and now you'll learn how to do a crock pot. I wonder if the crock pot can be worked outside in the camp. Has that ever happened to you?
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The, if I tell people that between my learner and input, the two together just feed each other. So when I'm out, there is pure pleasure for me in exploring for information. So I have to set a timer of like 2 hours. And I give myself permission that during that 2 hours, I have a loose goal of what I'm looking for. But if I get sidetracked, I give myself, we can explore, because I may find something there that's like, oh, I've been looking for this, and I never would have thought that this is how I would get that information.
I love what you said there. You give yourself time. So you have figured out strategies how to put boundaries versus, considering it a weakness and beating yourself up, right? So that's one thing we teach is don't beat yourself up. Our biggest strengths can be our biggest weaknesses, but how then do you put boundaries? How do you manage your weaknesses to become a strength? How do you manage your talents? Because it's only a raw talent unless it's being used productively. So then it's a strength. So what you said is you give yourself time, you recognize it now, and you've put boundaries around it so that you can use it in a strength mode.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm
And
hearing. Okay.
and I'm very structured in how I manage it when I'm working on a project and I have set goals of what I'm looking for. Then it's very structured on my timing and what I'm looking for, and then an evaluation of how deep is deep enough in this subject. How much do I really need to know? You know, is it a level 1 or is it a level 5? How much do I have? What's the cost benefit of going deeper?
I love it. I love it. I love it. So we believe that people are born with these talents, and if you depending on how you were raised and you're raised or your parents and your siblings, and we believe that, because if not, if it was just totally about our surroundings or our
Mm-hmm.
nurture, then our siblings would often have the same top 5 talents, and they don't, right? So we believe you were born with this. And if that's the case, we can actually reflect back when we're coaching people. And we do this with people who are coaching so they can understand that how these work. What's your earliest memory of using input where you're like, oh, I can look back now and go, I realized, yep, that was my input?
Well, I was glad you shared this question with me ahead of time, because I really had to think about this one. And it's not the answer I necessarily anticipated from a coach perspective. But for me, I look back as a child that, there's an aspect of input has 2 different aspects. There's a thinking aspect and a doing aspect. As a child, to me, it was the thinking. I was an observer of people. So I was always watching how people communicated, their nonverbals, actually how they articulated their speech, what meaning they put into that, how they interacted with others. And that I look back that I was really collecting information about people then, and just storing it and using it in interactions to move forward. And then as I look back at, like college years, when information became more readily available, like encyclopedias. I always wanted encyclopedias, and those were very expensive, something my family could not afford. Now I look back and go, oh yeah, I wanted it because of the wealth of information that I could find.
Yeah.
So then when the internet became available, that's when you would really start seeing me change, that you would see me doing more. Is that the collections I have now, whether they're electronic or digital files, or whether they're my library, you see those collections of information more readily now than what you did when I was younger.
Right, right. Well, just so you know, I sold encyclopedias. That was one of my first sales jobs when I was in my early 20s. And I can remember sitting down with parents and say, imagine sitting here looking at these pictures and all the information. I get their kids sitting there. So I totally know what you're talking about. And I think, that was awesome. I never thought about it. I always thought about it from a learner standpoint, because I have learner. So with learner and input together, man, have you ever, just a curiosity question, have you ever picked up encyclopedias like in a garage sale, or do you have any old
No.
versions? Okay.
No, it's not, and I looked at, because sometimes input collects a lot of items, and I have had a couple of collections, but I'm not, I don't collect, it's much more information and people perspective.
And thank you for sharing
items.
that, because a lot of people will read that on their assessment and go, well, I don't collect things. It isn't always a thing, right? It can't, a lot of times it is just information. They might collect books, but it isn't about the book. It's about the information inside the book, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So we talked a little bit about this and how it's working with pandemic, but overall, do you have, and I'm hearing which one it really works well with, I think, is learner. But besides learner, which of your other top 5 do you think your input really supports?
Relators we talked about. In my top 5, learner, it plays the strongest with, because I do lead with learner, but like I said, they are so close together at times. I mean, they're just an awesome team. Achiever, They work well with Achiever because it helps me look at what I'm going to use to complete that goal.
Uh-huh.
The one that it dips below my top 5 is to a ranger.
Okay.
A ranger looks at input has a sorting function for me also, like evaluating the type of information, what level is it, but a ranger brings it to a different perspective when I see what are the different paths we can take with this information. Like if my goal is here, well, I see all these different paths to get there. How does my information line up with that, and what information lines up with it to get from here to there?
Mm. So do you ever find those two then in odds with each other?
Yes.
Thank you.
Because achiever, you know, achiever's my number 2.
Uh-huh.
So I want to complete a project. I want to, I know what that goal looks like. I know what it's going to be, but my learner brings in a quality aspect that says this goal has to meet these expectations.
Ah,
To meet,
interesting.
to meet those expectations, then I look at input. Okay, what do we have going into this?
Yeah,
Is it
because
enough?
learner is not about learning everything. So
Uh-uh.
that is a quality. Oh, I've never thought about it like that. I just learned something new today. I got to write that down. That's good. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that.
So learner drives a little bit of a perfectionism toward it, toward
Okay.
my achiever. So then input, if I don't balance it well, can keep saying, you haven't dug enough. You haven't looked enough. Learner says there's more, so you need to keep looking. So I
Right.
have to really look at how those balance off. And a lot of that is looking at the client I'm serving. What are their needs? Where are they at? And
Mm-hmm.
then putting that criteria in there, and then that helps balance all 3 of those.
Mm. See, this is just so powerful, right? It's so powerful to have this tool and this language so that we can understand how we best work, how we best relate with other people. And, it's why we do this, right? It's a passion of making sure I wish everybody had this so they would understand it's not them often if they're feeling, and maybe it is them when they're feeling awkward, but then why are you feeling awkward in a situation? And now you know how to deal with that. So
Mhm.
um, let me ask you this question. What do you wish other people knew
Mm.
about the talent theme input?
I'm naturally curious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that there's just a natural curiosity about people, about their experiences, about their culture. So I have questions. I've learned I have to have social intelligence or emotional intelligence and social intelligence to tamper those down.
Okay.
But that curiosity is not meant for, like, in a team setting. If we're looking at a project and I have questions about it, that curiosity is not meant as a indicator of whether you have the right solution or not, but rather questions to clarify, are we on the right track? What sources have you used? It is asking a little bit about credibility of information,
Mm-hmm.
that there's a lot of credibility of information, that I'm not questioning the person, but maybe the context and the quality of information in that aspect.
That's so powerful, right? Because if somebody who has activator maybe or
Hmm.
achiever, just activator or achiever together, depending on how they work, there's dynamics there. But if somebody who maybe their emotional intelligence isn't as high around the subject matter, and you're asking questions, they could take that personal. Like, does she not trust
Hmm.
me? Does she not believe in the information? I already sent her the answers to some of these. Why is she asking me more questions?
Exactly. So for me, it's helping discover, what is the problem and what answer are you really looking to help solve that problem? And
Mm-hmm.
my questions help get to that
Mm-hmm.
solution.
So it's not personal. That's what I'm
Oh, no,
hearing.
not at all.
Yep.
No. If anything, the personal questions are because I want to connect with you.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
it's that connection from a relationship, from a team perspective, and just connecting,
Yeah.
because input likes to see different perspectives. So the more you connect with diverse people, the you have a much deeper appreciation of those perspectives.
Mm,
And so that also drives input.
love it, love it, love it. Okay. So, while we do not believe that we should make assumptions about what talent things are, I always use the example of I have a friend who has harmony and her husband swears up and down she does not have harmony because she has put such boundaries in it because she hates conflict so much that she'll say, just deal with it, move on, just deal with it, move on. So it does not show up as harmony, right, to other people. But with that said, just to have some fun, we always like to ask, is there a fictional character or a person in history that you believe would has or had input, and why do you believe that?
Okay, the one I came up with, this was a challenging
It
question.
is a
It
challenging question.
is, and I had a little bit of help with this one.
Okay, good.
The one that I think represents it best for me that I relate to in one way is a fictional character, Mary Poppins.
Oh, this is fun. Tell me why.
And her bag of magic. Because whatever, if you think about the kids and the parents, whatever happened, she always had a solution for it, right?
I
Whether
just
she
got
just pulled it
goosebumps. This
out
is great.
or she would pull things constant. Oh, this is what we need. Here comes the umbrella. Ridiculous things out of the bag, but they always solved that solution. It always helped the people, and it was always something that they needed right then just for that situation.
Oh, I love that example. That is a great example. I'm going to be using that in the future too. Okay, Mary Poppins. Got it. That is fabulous. Well, let me, Rhonda, just to tell you, I was thinking about the conversation we had. We have a few minutes here before we got on here, and you were talking about your spouse.
Oh,
And
yes.
would you mind taking a couple of minutes since we have it? This is kind of like a bonus for everybody, right? And share with everyone your spouse's either top 3 or 5, whatever you have off the top of your head, and
Let me
just
see.
give everybody like why this is so important, especially right now during quarantine when we have
Oh,
spouses together. How this has
yes.
helped you.
He is I'm going to look at him here. My husband's top 5 are command, analytical, significance, achiever, communication, focus, and consistency. So,
Command, analytical, uh, command, analytical,
analytical, significance,
significance,
achiever,
achiever,
communication.
communication.
Yep, those are the top 5. Sorry, I gave too many.
Wow, that's all right. Wow. Okay, so very focused, driven, take control.
Consistent.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. We're
Autonomy.
I was gonna say autonomy and probably rule oriented
Um, he has all
structure.
he has all of the influencing talents in his top 10 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
So their consistency brings that fairness because
Uh-huh.
I'll notice in statements, well, that's not fair to everyone. This what they're doing. It's like, consistency comes out there.
Yeah.
So he is almost all influencing strengths. I am relationship building. Where we meet in the middle is our achiever, woo, activator, down toward. So we get a lot done together once we can agree upon what we're going to do and how we're going to do it.
So the approach, it takes some time. Before you had this language and you look back, can I ask how long y'all been married?
Oh my goodness, this is almost embarrassing. 43 years.
Okay. So before, maybe think back to when you guys were first married, after the newlywed stage, before the growth stage, right? And you used to get frustrated maybe with each other. And then now having this language and then during this time of quarantine, right? Like how can this help people understand each other?
It's a tremendous difference. We went through an employment change a few years ago, and it's probably been one of the toughest times in our marriages that we were living apart for a couple of years, and it was very stressful. Um, Without this, I don't know if we would have survived or not, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
because it gave us a language to communicate on, you know, my learner needs this. And learner is something that he now understands. He says, I understand. He says, I used to think that you're a learner, that someday you would give up and just stop wanting to take classes. And he goes, now I understand that's never going to happen, is
Yeah.
it? And I said, no, it's not, you know. And I know with his command that he automatically wants to take charge. He doesn't realize he's doing it. He is fantastic in emergencies, that he just sees the direction that needs to be done and what needs to happen. But yet we both have to work within that on, well, no, I think this is a joint decision. I think there's different pathways to get to this decision.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really provided a language to help us talk. You know, I always tell my clients, let's put it out on the table, meaning, okay, let's take whatever subject this is or controversy, let's put it out on a table and just look at it from different perspectives. So it's allowed us to do that, take that conflict and put it out there and say, okay, what is it that you need? What is it that I need? And sometimes, like we talked earlier, my talents are fighting among themselves. And now we add a different personality, and it's a 3 or 4-way fight, and we're not even recognizing that until we start talking about it.
Yep. Yep. Well, thank you for that. And I know it was kind of a pivot there, but I thought we're going to take advantage of this time because especially right now when so many people, and I've been watching, shows on TV in the afternoon that it's about quarantine and exes and being quarantined with people. And I'm like, let me help you, right?
It does.
Right? Because a lot of it, just like we teach, is we can't understand somebody else if we don't understand ourselves first. And when we understand ourselves, we can let go of our ego. We don't have that need to prove we're right.
Right.
And and in a marriage, that's so important, or any type of partnership. So, well, thank you for that. So here, we'll just end with, then, what do you wish, everybody, why do you think strengths is so important? Why do you think everybody should understand this or have this?
I think everyone should understand their talents, their strengths, because as you said, you first have to be self-aware. You have to understand yourself. Most people walk around thinking they're very average. They do not recognize how unique they are, that no one has their combination, their experiences, their background. And without their puzzle piece, we are losing a huge piece of the puzzle. So one of the things that clients will talk about is, I just thought this was average. I thought everyone did this. And seeing the change that comes over them in realizing the value they bring to the world and how we need them, each and every one of them, to contribute to their family, their communities, their employer, the things that they're passionate about is what makes the difference in the world.
Amen, sister. Preach it. Well, if you're watching this and you want to hear more about strengths, first of all, Rhonda, what is your website? You want to tell everybody what your website is?
ApplyYourStrengths.com.
ApplyYourStrengths.com. You can go to strongcommunities.coach, and you can even go up to the left-hand corner and purchase an assessment there. But if you want to reach out to Rhonda and ask her questions, go to ApplyYourStrengths.com. We just thank you for your time and being so vulnerable and transparent. I do believe that's such a gift when we could do that, and everybody wants to hear, so they know they're not alone. So thank you for doing this today, girlfriend, and stay healthy.
Yes, you too. It was a pleasure, Sherry. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, Rhonda.